This thing that we have in our hands, in our grip, is so precious, this thing called life. Brains like to see something as being binary. It's either this or that. I'm either lazy or I'm driven. And that's not true. Actually, that's a misconception. We are pleasure-seeking creatures. We need pleasure in our lives. Learn to be in the moment, to stop pushing and driving and being impatient. The brain is never going to be satisfied.
Why is it that it's those people that are high functioning that are falling apart privately and doing nothing about it?
Values come out of voids. So what we think is most important often comes from what we perceive we didn't have or don't have. I'm not advocating for anybody to be unproductive or not be a CEO or an entrepreneur or whatever they are. No. Be what you are. That's great. And take the little moments to.
Welcome to another edition of Mindset Profits. I'm with the author of The Sweet Spot, Sue Fuller-Good. And this is going to be therapy, more for me actually, but a whole lot of it for someone who's watching, because a lot of the content that we see, especially by personal development trainers, says success is on the other side of you driving yourself hard, pushing hard, working beyond your discomfort, your comfort zones. And that has worked for so many people, but it has led so many more people crash and burn in the process. And what Sue is all about, and she will introduce her profile. I've read most of the book, is finding the balance between not hiding from challenging yourself. You work hard, you achieve you find your essence, you find your purpose, and you work at it, but also do it in a way that's sustainable, in a way that doesn't cause you at 50 or at 60 to be on chronic medication. And I think it's a lesson that I need, because a lot of my friends have told me, you need Sue, and Sue is here. Welcome.
Thank you. And I couldn't be happier to be here. It's really, really nice to be here.
It's always nice when my friends say you need to talk to someone, and then I find them.
And then the teacher arrives at your door.
And the teacher arrives. So I get curious what lesson I need, what lesson I'm missing. But let's introduce you to the people. What is your passion? What led you to this work?
So it's a long story, and hopefully you've got time for me to give you the long story. I was born really with a passion for people. I love people. I believe in the potential of all people, and I love people to enjoy this precious thing called life to the maximum. And very, very early on in my career, I literally had just graduated as a physiotherapist, and I arrived in London and I took a job. You will have read that story in my book. I took a job working in a ward for dying elderly people. And as you can imagine, I was completely out of my depth, but I was the student and the teacher arrived. And one of the greatest teachers of my life was called Sid. And I held his hand on his dying day, and he said, if only I had lived differently. And my heart nearly broke, because there was Sid, 70-something years old, an amputee with gnarled nails and wrinkled face, skinny because he'd spent most of his life drinking too much and eating too little and not exercising. He was lonely, he was sad, he was miserable, he was bitter. And I listened to his if only lament, and I just went, I have to share that with anybody who will listen for the rest of my life. Because when you are 70-something and you're on your deathbed, it's too late. And this thing that we have in our hands, in our grip, is so precious, this thing called life. It's an adventure. And sometimes the mind gets so bogged down with what it thinks is going to bring us the happiness, the safety, the security, the approval, the affirmation, the sense of pride in ourselves, the self-esteem, whatever it is our brain thinks we need, it thinks that we need that above all else. And I think the truth is, what we really need is to rein that voice in our heads in and to live in a balanced way so that we can really, really be living and really, really enjoying every precious moment of our precious life.
I get you. And the more I was reading and listening to even that story, I asked myself the question, why? Why do we do things that way? If it's so obvious, because your body does give you signals that you're on the wrong path, you're about to burn out, you're burning out, you're about to crash. Why do people ignore the signs and push through?
Such a good question. I think the answer is in neuroscience. Our brains are designed, are wired to keep us alive in the world. And whatever our brain thinks we need to ensure our survival and our preservation, and not only, by the way, ours, but the whole species' preservation and longevity, it's wired for that. So unless we're using the higher brain centers to override that, unconscious information system, we will be driven to do whatever it is that our brain thinks will keep us alive in the sea of life. And very often, what our brain thinks will keep us alive is striving, driving, getting more success, getting more recognition, getting more money in the bank, getting more power, getting more security. But actually, it's counterintuitive. Often that takes us away from what will really keep us safe in the world, because it might damage our health, it might destroy our relationships, which are life-sustaining, it might damage all sorts of things. But our brains can't see that.
Is it because we have so many examples of people who do it that way and achieve the kind of success that we want? Because I look at examples like Steve Jobs and how hard he worked himself, Bill Gates, how hard he worked himself. In sports, you have Kobe Bryant, you have Michael Jordan. If you check how hard they pushed themselves and their bodies, they literally did it to the limit. And they achieve the kind of success that everyone looks at and say, but I want that success. Yeah. And it becomes sort of the lesson that we envy.
Well, I was coaching a leader of a big organization in London this morning. And I said to him, what is your definition of success? What do you think success really is? And he was quiet for a long time before he answered the question. And when he did, he said, I actually think success is about many things, not just getting ahead at work, not just climbing that corporate ladder. I actually think success for me is about internal happiness, contentment, joy, connection with myself and the people around me. And success at work is part of it, but it's not the whole deal. So I think we look at people like Steve Jobs, bless him, and thank him for, I also use an Apple computer and an Apple phone. So, he was amazing. But I think we all know about the speech he wrote on his deathbed. And I think we know about the many, many difficult moments he had with himself in his last hours and days. So why do we revere that when we're not seeing the whole picture? We're just looking at a snippet of someone's life.
And that's what you bring out in your book, because when you talk wellness, you say it's holistic. So it's what success looks like in your health, what success looks like in your business, what success looks like in your relationships. And people most often focus on just the one area at the expense of everything else.
Exactly. And so often we see it, that, the really successful actors or musicians or business people like Steve Jobs actually burn themselves out in many, many ways, or they damage many of their relationships and land up sometimes taking their own lives, or sometimes being, ill or addicted or miserable or fatigued or whatever. And so we're just not getting the whole picture. And I think we each individually have to sit quietly with ourselves and say, what does it mean for me to be successful? What do I want out of this thing called life? And I think if we thought about it with true reflection, with true mindfulness, we would say to ourselves, actually, I want a happy family life. I want great health. I actually want energy and vitality. And I want to have fun and joy and laughter as well as success. Yeah.
So if I'm looking at myself, why is it that sometimes it's the high functioning people that are achieving what success looks like, especially in business, and career? They are achieving what success looks like, but privately they're falling apart. Sometimes the friends can notice, give them warning signs. Like I look at my friends, one asked me, "Are you resting?" And it was so strange that was a difficult question for me to answer. I had to ask myself, am I resting, or how do I rest? And I couldn't at the time. I've had to try and find a way to be not always on the go. Why is it that it's those people that are high functioning that are falling apart privately and doing nothing about it?
So I'm going to answer that in two parts. I think the first thing is that values come out of voids. So what we think is most important often comes from what we perceive we didn't have or don't have. So let's say you grew up in poverty, or you grew up with
a version of it.
Okay. So then your brain says, the thing I need most in life is that thing I never had. That's what's going to bring me happiness. That's what's going to bring me security. And so then you measure everything in that. But I think your brain is seeing only half the picture, because actually financial security, whilst I do revere it, I want it myself and I want everybody I know to have it. It is just a piece of the security. And once you've mastered financial security generation, it's like learning to ride a bicycle. I think you've already mastered that. So you don't have to focus your entire life on that.
Also, it's focusing on just the one side of the picture to avoid the life I'm trying to escape.
Exactly. But then you're running away from something as opposed to running towards something. And I think if we leave it up to our lower centers of our brain, if we leave it up to our unconscious, I call it the ego mind. The ego mind will always want what it thinks you didn't have and what it thinks will keep you safe. And it, by definition, will never, ever be satisfied. It will always want more and more and more. Rockefeller, who is probably one of the richest people the world has seen, when he was asked how much is enough, he said, enough is when I have the next dollar. And I think that's so telling,
I didn't know
need
that
more.
part.
Yeah.
All right. So if I look at the sweet spot, how do you define it? I know I gave a version of a definition at the beginning. What is the sweet spot?
So it's a huge, big concept. And it's a concept that really comes from an understanding of balance. Anything, if taken to extreme, becomes a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give an example. I was raised in a family where being selfish was the cardinal crime. God help you if you were selfish. And so we were led to believe that as long as you weren't selfish, you were fine. But okay, I think it's a great thing not to be too selfish. But if you're so unselfish, you land up becoming a doormat. So I started to look at and started to really delve into the idea that it's really the middle ground of everything that is where we want to strive for. Not too much and not too little. And I always like to think of things on a continuum. If you could imagine, on one side is one extreme and the other, there's the other extreme. We can bunny hop a little bit along until we find ourselves in that region where we've got some of each and that perfect amount of whatever it is that we're looking for. And let's put driven, since we're talking about that.
Yeah.
If we put lazy and
Because there are people who are struggling with that too, on the
absolutely
other extreme.
lazy bum on this side and
Ultra
driven and never satisfied on the other side. If we could find that sweet spot, we could sometimes be more on this side and sometimes more on this side, but we could play along that continuum, really seeing where the energy is highest, where the joy and the happiness and the passion is highest, but not letting ourselves get stuck on one or other extreme, which is, of course, not sustainable.
So you're saying both extremes are important. There's times where you do need that bit of lazy.
Yeah, absolutely. But not maybe all the way over here. And our brains like to see something as being binary. It's either this or that. I'm either lazy or I'm driven. And that's not true. Actually, that's a misconception. We are actually both. We're sometimes a little bit lazy on a Sunday and we can sleep in and have a rest and, I don't know, drink champagne or eat oysters or whatever it is. And then on the other hand, we can work ourselves really, really hard when we're working, but we give ourselves time to do both. And the ultimate end point is that we play in the middle ground.
How do I move myself from the extremes, from both extremes? Because I'm picturing one person who does not know how to turn themselves off. They are go, 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 go. And on the other extreme, one person who does not know how to turn themselves on, like they are ultra lazy. They cannot get up in the morning and do anything.
Absolutely. Well, look, let's start with the ultra driven. Okay. I think the first thing to do, and this is how I worked with my selfish, unselfish part, and maybe that's an easier one to work with because driven has got a lot of emotion and a lot of already programmed ideas about it. If you could love and accept and own the opposite quality. So in my instance, I really had to come to own and accept and be okay with my selfish part. And actually, when it came up, actually celebrate and say, yes,
I'm selfish.
This is the selfish me. Today I'm being selfish. I'm not answering my phone. I don't care who needs me. I'm on the couch or I'm lying in the sun, whatever I'm doing. So really owning and coming to terms with and seeing the value of your opposite side is the first step. Dropping the judgment that you've been led to have about that opposite side, okay? Because I was told being selfish was terrible. You've been told maybe, or somehow your life has given you the view that being lazy is terrible, being unmotivated is terrible. So really owning that part is really the first step. And once you can own it and be okay with it and see the value of it and drop your judgment, then you can start to use it a little bit, just a little bit, and then a little bit more until you can find that magical sweet spot. Bunny hopping along the continuum until you say, yeah, this works. Now I've got energy. I wake up on Monday and I feel vibrant and alive because I took the weekend off. Or on Monday night, I'm taking the night off. I'm going home at 4:00 and I'm chilling for the night. So you can start to play along that continuum and find the balance because you'll know when you get it. It feels good. You feel energized. Your body says, yes, please. I like it.
What if, are there people that need help doing this? They can't do it themselves?
Often. Really, really often. And I'm going to tell you why. Because so often if it's being programmed into you, it's in your blind spot. You know, like when you're driving along and you just didn't see that car.
Yeah.
It's really in your blind spot how to shift this. And so often the judgment that you carry is in your unconscious mind. You don't even know it's there. But I will say this, that life gives us constant opportunities to engage with these parts of ourselves. And that's in the form of other people. I always say you spot it, you got it. So if you look at that person down the road and you say, oh, they drive me mad because they're so lazy or so whatever, the little note to self is, if I spot it, I must have it. So where am I lazy? And even if it's really hard for you, you can start to say, there's my lazy bit. when I've got to cook supper. I buy garlic already chopped or whatever it is. You might have to really look to find it, but start building your repertoire of seeing where your lazy side shows up.
Where does stress come in this equation? Because there is the kind of stress that there are people that use stress well. There are people that crush and avoid stress.
So I'm going to answer you this about stress. Imagine if we had a graph, and on the one side we had performance, and on the other side we had stress.
Yeah.
And
performance, stress.
Exactly. And an X and a Y axis. And the graph that we would draw would be like an upside down U.
Okay.
Because a certain degree of stress is required for us to perform. If we had absolutely no stress, we'd be unmotivated, bored, disinterested, and disengaged, and our performance would be really low. But as that graph goes up and around, there's
gets to a tipping point.
A tipping point, exactly right, beyond which we go into distress. So we go from eustress, EU stress, where we're in a great space, into distress, where we're now overloaded, overstressed, overwhelmed. And in that place, our performance starts coming right down and we just can't perform. And I think a lot of people operate on that distress line. And so those people are operating, going over into distress, coming back into eustress, going over into distress, coming back. But sometimes they lose the balance and they go over into distress, stay in distress, and then their performance starts coming right down and their health starts getting damaged. By the same token, there's some people who are playing down here at this end of the graph where there isn't enough stress. Maybe they're avoiding stress. Maybe they don't trust stress. Maybe they think no stress is the answer to their happiness. And so they stay and play over here. But of course, they're not in the sweet spot. And so they're not going to find the happiness they yearn for because they need to come a little bit further over here and accept a little bit of stress. You know, we need some
challenge,
some fire in our bellies in order to get us through. So I'm going to say that. And then if it's okay for me to just blast forth a little bit more, because it's such an important subject to me and it's what I eat and sleep and breathe.
Yeah.
If you could imagine an upside down U, a different one now, not with the X and Y axis, an upside down U, where we really want to play is at the bottom of that upside down U, where we can go a little bit into sympathetic overdrive, a little bit into fight and flight, and then come back down into rest and recover.
Okay.
Back up into fight and flight, down into rest and recover. So you have a traffic jam and you've got to get to a meeting, and then you come home and you have a cup of tea and you put your feet on the table and you feel better. And you have a deadline to meet, and then you have dinner with your loved ones and you feel better. So you go like this at the bottom of the curve. And in that place, you're playful, you can learn, you can focus, you have joy, you have curiosity, you have passion and zest and energy. But if you go up the activation curve and you start staying up there in fight and flight and living in fight and flight, that's when you start damaging the body and the system, because the body wasn't designed for that. It was designed to activate and calm. So if we start staying up there, the system loses its resilience and it forgets how to be elastic and come back into calm. And that's when we have a problem, because now we just go up and up and up and we stay up there. And God forbid that gets even worse and we become even more overwhelmed and overstressed, living in the distress part of the curve I told you in the previous example. And we go over another line into freeze mode. So instead of being in fight and flight, we go over into freeze. Now the system is actually so overwhelmed, it's shut down, so that we don't blow a head gasket and have a stroke or a heart attack or something. The brain starts shutting the body down. Now we might look very calm on the outside, but underneath there's this constant activation. And I've forgotten what your question was.
No. You are answering with you. It was more on the stress. People that use stress well and
Yes.
others that
So-
avoid the stress.
Exactly right. So the people who are using it well are playing down here, getting a little bit activated and coming back to calm. The people who are going right up into the freeze mode, they're not playing it well because now the system is in shutdown. And because the brain is in overwhelm and the nervous system is in overwhelm, they're living with an I can't mentality. It's like the system says, I can't cope. That's why they've gone into freeze. But when you're down here in the lower part of the curve in fight and flight, your brain is still in I can cope. It's tough and I'm fighting for my life and survival, but I can do it. So the people who are really struggling with bad stress are the ones who've gone over into I can't. Now the system's shut down.
Do you think that people in our lives can celebrate us for our quality and call us resilient and call us you're good at working under pressure to a level where it becomes detrimental to us because now we feel like it's an identity we need to keep? If people say I'm resilient, I need to show that I'm strong. I always show up.
Yes, but I think we need to really understand what resilience means. And I think true resilience means that I know how to take proper care of myself. I know how to come back to calm. Stretching something, and I mean, if we take an elastic band and we stretch it and stretch it and stretch it, it'll snap eventually. It definitely will snap.
Yeah.
And if we celebrate that, what are we teaching people? What are we saying to people? I think the American culture is really revering that. And that's all over social media. So those people who are supposedly resilient are the ones who are coping with unbelievable stress. But as you rightly said, what's happening in their personal lives? How sustainable are they? How balanced is their lives? And how creative are they really able to be? How joyful are they really able to be? So, yeah, I think we're hard.
That's why I asked, because the more I read in your book, I could see myself actually in part of this, because outside it looks like strength, it looks like resilience, it looks like a strong work ethic. But on the inside, you are crashing somewhere.
Exactly. And you'll read in my book how I just had one accident after the next. And the major accident that I didn't even get to write about because it happened after I'd published my book, and I'm including it to some degree in my revised version of that book. I literally fell off the top of a mountain. I literally fell off the top of Cathedral Peak, 60 meters.
Whoa.
And only then did I finally go, okay, I think it's actually not working to just keep going and going and going and going. By then I'd had more accidents than I care to count because my system was trying to tell me something. In my instance, it was accidents. In other people's incidents, and I find this in my treatment room, it's pain they suffer from. In other people's lives, it's anxiety, or they can't sleep, or their relationships are crashing. They have constant conflict, or they just find they have social anxiety and they can't talk to people anymore. Whatever it is, however it's manifesting for you, if you just keep pushing the system and pushing the system, it's going to break. And you don't want that because it's a hell of a long way back.
What made you fall by the mountain?
It's a good question. And people have asked me that so many times in the last 4 years. I mean, on paper, I'm a very experienced mountaineer. I'd climbed that particular mountain many, many times. So what actually went wrong that day? And I could answer that it had been raining a lot. In fact, nowadays they close the mountain if it's been raining ever since my accident because they recognize that it's dangerous. But what happened for me, I think I was going so fast. It was like my body couldn't keep up with myself. I was actually on many occasions living outside my body. It's like my body was on the treadmill going like crazy, being driven by this inner dictator in my brain, but I wasn't integrated. I wasn't living inside myself, so I couldn't really feel or hear what was going on. And so eventually I completely lost my balance in the most profound way possible. And I'm super glad, by the way, now that I'm out the other side, almost,
you're here.
that it happened.
How did you survive, though? That's a fall that could kill you.
That should have killed me. I mean, people don't survive that, truthfully. 60 meters is too far. And I landed on a little shelf about this big. No, not quite that big,
Yeah.
but literally it was, I mean, with all
Tiny.
that momentum and speed, I don't know how I landed up being able to come to a grinding halt. And I was unconscious. So it wasn't like I could have really saved my own life in that moment. How did I survive? I think it just wasn't my day. Maybe I was destined to learn what I learned that day
And share it here.
and share it here. Yeah.
Maybe let's ask what you learned that day when you were in bed, when you had come to and now conscious, fully aware of what just happened. What was going through your mind?
Well, it took me a very long time to really learn the lesson. I must say, I broke so many bones and damaged organs and. But I remember talking to my sister one day on the phone, and I was telling her, she lived in England at the time. She's now sadly passed away, and that's the really
Sorry.
most important part of the story, is that she said to me, I was sharing with her and telling her, and the doctors can't believe how well I'm doing. They said I'd never be able to walk properly again, and look at me now. And I was bragging away about how much progress I was making back on that treadmill, even with my recovery. And she said to me, God, you make me sick. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, here you are back on the treadmill. You've learned nothing. You're just not present in this experience of being in a wheelchair, of being disabled, of needing help. You're just not there. You're just somewhere else, over there, having solved all the problems. And I put down the phone. I was really angry with her and very upset. But actually, that suddenly dawned on me. Get into the damn wheelchair, girl. That's where you are now. This is your reality today. And be there and suck it dry for everything it has to offer you. And then, in due course, you'll be out of the wheelchair, God be willing. And God clearly was willing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here I am. So it was really to learn to be in the moment, to stop pushing and driving and being impatient and skipping out all these minutes that were busy happening to me. And rather just slow down, take a breath, take a pause. And thank God my sister taught me that before her life was abruptly ended, just like this one day when she had a brain aneurysm a few months later, literally a few months later. And I realized how blessed I was to still be here on this magnificent journey called life, living the adventure of being alive.
Do you still climb mountains now?
I still climb mountains, and I haven't been back to that mountain, but I've been up many, many others. And it is hard for me, but I go back with a lot more mindfulness now. I go back with a lot more slowness. I don't rush. In fact, that morning that I fell, we decided we were going to be back by lunchtime, even though most people take all day to do that climb. We were going to leave early, hurry on up, hurry on down, and be back by lunchtime. My brother, my son, and I.
That's part of the mistake.
Exactly right. Exactly right. What's the hurry? Come on.
What do you say to people who say, I hear you, I hear the message, but I'm in a work environment that's toxic. It's causing me to work this hard, but I feel helpless to escape it.
Oh, that is such a great question. And I'm going to be really honest. I hear that in my clinic all the time. I really hear that from my coaching clients so often. I'm a leader of a huge organization. How do you want me to do it differently? How could I do it differently? Especially if they live in America or in a company that runs with American culture. It's just so hard for them. But the truth is, and I really, really want to stress this, every minute of every day is a choice. And often we can't see that choice. Often we forget that actually we're not in orange outfits being told what to eat and drink every day. And it's not that you have to give up your job or stop doing what you're doing. I'm not advocating for anybody to be unproductive or not be a CEO or an entrepreneur or whatever they are. No, be what you are. That's great. and take the little moments to stop and to reflect and to connect with yourself, to actually be in your body and not just in your brain. This is where the trouble starts, and this is where the answer comes from.
You say the body it keeps a score, the body remembers, the body gives warning signs, signals. What are some of those that people probably are ignoring and would do well to start checking? Is my body doing this and telling me this?
Exactly. And thank you for putting it like that, because you're exactly right. And Bessel van der Kolk was so on the money when he said the body keeps the score. It so does. And the body never lies, ever. So often we lie to ourselves. We talk nonsense in our own heads, and I could use much stronger words.
I think we get it.
When people do this, and I did it too. You know, when we can't sleep, when we wake up exhausted, when we have pain, when we just look at ourselves and we can see our eyes are red or sunken, or we eat too fast, or we don't feel like eating. When we know that we went out for dinner with a whole bunch of friends and we didn't really enjoy it. There was no enjoyment out of it because we weren't really there. When we can't enjoy sex, when we can't enjoy a laugh with our children, we feel too busy, too rushed to even play. That's when the body's talking.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. But those, I call them bell clangers. You might have read about it in the book. There are bell clangers going off all the time, and you've got to know your own ones. So I know, for example, headaches are one of mine. Jeepers creepers, my body tells me. And I'm going to be really honest. I went away for a lovely weekend away. It's my birthday tomorrow. And my lovely partner took me to the bush for the weekend, to the Pilansberg. And I came home, and yesterday I had a splitting headache. And I had to say, what is my body trying to say? Well, I'll tell you. I thought I had to make up, taking Wednesday afternoon off because it's my birthday and I was away for the weekend and blah, blah, blah. But a friend of mine passed away on Sunday night, and I didn't really give myself the time to feel what I felt. I was so busy letting people know, offering my help with the funeral arrangements and whatever. But I didn't stop and say, what do I feel?
About the loss,
about her life ending so young, about the suffering she experienced that I witnessed. So I didn't stop and really connect with me and the emotion that was building up inside of me. So my body slowed me down on Monday, and on Monday night I had to lie in bed with my head sore and go, oh God, okay.
I just lost a friend.
Yes, my heart is aching.
All right, so I'm looking at, how do you help someone who says pressure, stress, and being driven, or just the weight of responsibility has turned me into this person who cares less about relationships, less about people, but more about providing? I think it happens to a lot more men than women. It's an assumption I have. Actually, no. I think it happens to the people that have the weight of responsibility on them, who, because I still have bills to pay, I still have kids to feed, I work myself this hard, and it's exhausting. I can feel the exhaustion, but what do? The bills don't go away.
I think the first thing is the brain is never going to be satisfied. So if you think a little bit extra money is going to be the answer, have a look. When you were earning 10,000 Rand a month, or 5,000 Rand, whatever the number was, you thought if I had a bit more, I'd have more chance to rest. But now you're earning
3 times that.
3 times that. And you're still having the same story. That's when we have to look and say, okay, maybe the brain is not telling me the full story. And it's doing that to protect me. Thank you, brain. Thank you for trying to keep me alive in the sea of life. But actually, I can take a little longer. Actually, I can pay my bills. Maybe I can't have all the overseas holidays under God's lovely sun that I might want to have, but I've got enough.
Mm.
And so I can slow down and just look after my health, or take a little bit longer to get that extra bit that you want. So I think the weight of responsibility is a huge truth, and it's also a huge source of untruth. And I want to say this. Imagine if there was a lion at the door right here behind me.
Yeah.
If there was a lion, do you think my brain would be interested in a balanced life? All it
More
would be
about
thinking,
escaping.
exactly, getting me to safety from that roaring lion behind me. Now, we could substitute lion for mortgage to pay, for bills, for school fees, for blah, 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 all that stuff that's part of life. And so the brain gets tunnel vision.
Because the bills have become a lion behind you that you need to escape. You care less about the relationship, more about escaping.
Exactly. You're running away from it constantly, trying to keep yourself safe, trying to get yourself to safety. Only the lion is in your head and it's coming with you. So you can't get away. Actually, you can feel quite sorry for yourself. Give yourself a hug. Sure, but that's hard.
And I guess the sad part is the moment you feel like you're escaping it because maybe the income is increasing, you create new bills and a bigger lion.
Exactly right. Now I've got my cousin to take care of, and I'm also going to educate my big brother or my little brother, or whoever it is, and I'm going to pay for my mother and blah, blah, blah. So the bills just keep going up and up and up. It's never going to end. So what do we have to do is exercise our right to choose and say, this I can and that I can't. I don't have to be a hero, because as within, so without. And I'm going to recover first. I'm going to take care of me and my needs first. And that's not selfish. That is wisdom.
That's the biggest lesson I picked up from your book for myself, that sometimes this thing that we're calling resilience and strength stops being strength and resilience and a work ethic. It becomes more less self-care.
Exactly. And self-care is such a term bandied around since COVID. I hear it all the time with, execs and whatever. And they say to me, oh, no, I'm doing self-care. I went for a massage and I go and have my nails painted or my whatever. And I say, that's not self-care. I mean, that's a nice to have. Go for it. I mean, I don't criticize you at all if you want to have your nails done or your massage done. That's wonderful. But it's not self-care. Self-care is knowing when you're tired and resting. The Buddha said, and I think this is some of the greatest wisdom I've ever heard. If the real definition of enlightenment is this: when you're hungry, eat. When you're tired, sleep. When you're thirsty, drink. And why is that so hard for us to do? We carry this badge of honor. I'm tired, but I'm just going to push on, go harder, dig deeper.
Because the people celebrate me for being that person, and I feel like it's a status I need to keep.
It's a badge of honor. And yet, are they going to celebrate you when you get burnout and you literally take 2 years to be able to go back to work? Or you deliver a half-baked effort because your brain is not in focus, is able to focus, and is not able to perform at your best. There's no creativity less. Are they going to celebrate you then? And isn't it more important how you feel about yourself? Your recovery comes first, and only you know what your recovery needs. That's the thing. I don't know if my recovery requires me to get out my computer and answer those emails that are waiting for me, or if my recovery actually requires me to go to bed and have a good night's sleep. Only I know that. How could anybody out there in the world know what you need?
You list a number of things, habits, if I can call them, that people who take good care of themselves do. What would you call your top 3? I know you list many.
My top 3. The toppest of toppest is the one I find the most difficult. And so I'm going to call it the top because it's taken me decades to learn this one. is to stop and ask yourself, how am I? How am I doing? What's working and what's not? Because otherwise, you just keep trucking along, and you never take a moment to reflect and say, hang on a minute, I'm going there. And actually, that's where I want to be. So stop and reflect is my very first, most
reflection.
important.
And how often do I do this?
That's up to you. But I would say it needs to be done at least a few times a week.
Okay. I thought you'd say once a week.
A few times a week, because a whole week going off in that direction is going to take a long time to correct. So if you keep on checking in with yourself, how am I? Is this right? Does it feel good? Am I doing what I believe is right? Am I doing what I feel is the answer for my life?
So for accountability, it's a good thing to then introduce the practice to a partner or kids and stuff, and it becomes something that we do together every now and then. We check in.
I think so.
How are you?
Yeah. How are you? What does your body say? You know, is my chest tight? Is my heart racing? Is my stomach in a knot? Do I feel like my throat's so tight I can hardly speak and my shoulders are tight? And these are things I hear all day long in my clinic. And I keep my foot in the clinic, by the way, so that I hear these things. So I know what people are struggling with, and it's not, what I think people are struggling with. It really is what I'm told from people. So
like one.
So that's
two.
one. Number two is take care of your body. That means exercise, and only you know how much you need to exercise, but it's not negotiable. Motion is lotion and movement is magic. So get your body moving, because if you don't, you can never have health. In addition, eat God-made food. If God made it, eat it. If man made it,
Oh, that's how you define it.
As far as you can, avoid it. So if it's made in a factory, best you can. And it's got to be colorful, okay? Because we need to feed the microbiome. So all the little bacteria need to be kept vibrant and alive, and they require all the different colors.
So this is for everyone who doesn't like their veggies.
Exactly. You need beetroot and carrots and green peppers and the whole spectrum of color. And the third one is sleep. But we're still on number two, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm giving myself a chance.
You
throw in
had
as
to
many as I can.
sneak in as many as you could. I see what you're doing.
I'm greedy. So, to try and make sure that you get not only enough sleep, but good quality sleep. That means you've got to really make sure that when you're closing your eyes, you're actually going into restorative sleep. But truthfully, without sleep, we die. So we have to make sure that we get the right amount of sleep. Sleep, especially rapid eye motion sleep, is like flossing your teeth. You've got to floss all those little neurons and clean them up so that your brain is nice and crisp and clean in the morning. And if you don't get good quality sleep and you don't get that restorative sleep, you won't wake up fresh and with a clean brain in the morning. Okay. And by the way, if you're on sleeping tablets, you're not getting your brain nice and clean. And then number three.
Wait. Before we get to number three, on the sleep thing, a question popped up in mind as you're talking, because many people say our bodies are different. What does good quality sleep look like on average? Because I know, because the bodies are different, maybe it might be 7, 8 for some. I don't know how that works. What does science say?
Science says that most people, that's about 94 or so % of people, need between 7 and 8 hours a night. By the way, there are very few people who can live on 5 or 6. Okay. And I just hear it all the time. No, I don't really need much sleep.
I do 4 or 5.
I do 4 or 5. And I'm fine like that. And then I'm going to say to you, yes, and what are you doing the next day to self-medicate, to stay awake and alive? That's where your coffee addiction's coming from.
And energy drinks.
Exactly. And if you need one of those to keep you floating and performing, you're not getting enough sleep. It's that simple.
You're triggering me. I have cappuccino every day. Is that a bad thing?
1 cappuccino?
Yeah, 1.
Oh, I think one cappuccino, I also have one a day. It's one of the pleasures of life. And that, by the way, is going to be my last one. So I'll get to it in a moment. I think if you have one cappuccino, great, go for it, because it's, it's beautiful. It's pleasureful.
Like a morning
it's
routine.
Joyful. Yes. But I'm going to say this so that we just jump into my third suggestion.
Yeah.
Is we are pleasure-seeking creatures. We need pleasure in our lives. So when you're having pleasure, stop and enjoy it. Enjoy that cappuccino. Don't gulp it down while you're busy at the next robot, also talking on your cell phone and listening to the news. I recognize you. I know you.
You can see the guilt.
Slow down and drink that cappuccino and taste that delicious coffee with all that yummy froth on the top. Then that cappuccino is a bit of magic for you. So.
Thank you. And the fun part, I know you gave the example with cappuccino. What does it look like for other people? Because I imagine there's so many people who will say, I get you, but not quite. I don't know how to have fun.
And I'm going to remind you of that activation curve. None of us are playful when we're up there in fight and flight or freeze. Okay, if there's a lion chasing me, do I feel like sitting down and having some fun and a good laugh? And no. So we've got to come down the activation curve to be able to play and have fun. So yes, sometimes pleasure includes play. Lots of times it includes play. Making time to have that laugh, making time to have a game, whether it's a game of tennis or a game of cards or a I spy with my little eye with your little guy or little girl, on a journey, whatever it is, just making time to play. But pleasure can also look like enjoying your hot shower in the morning. Those of us that are blessed to have beautiful hot water pouring over our bodies in the morning. Enjoying getting into the sheets at night. Just opening yourself to experiencing that pleasure. Having some time for sexual pleasure. It's essential for our well-being.
Is it?
It absolutely. I always say to people, we're one of very few animals who have a clitoris. And the clitoris has one function only, and that's pleasure. There's nothing else that the clitoris was put in the body for. And there's nothing in the body that is there for no reason. So the good creator designed us to enjoy pleasure.
Wouldn't this feel bad for someone who says, I haven't had a partner for 5 years?
Do you need a partner to enjoy your body?
But
if not, sexual pleasure, although I do advocate for everybody having sexual pleasure, that is one of our birthrights. But if not that, curl up on the couch with your best novel.
Okay.
Snuggle up under a blanket next to a warm fire and drink a delicious glass of wine or a cup of hot chocolate or whatever it is you love. So enjoy the pleasures that are available. Enjoy the sun on your skin. Enjoy a cloudless sky, just looking at that beautiful color. Whatever it is, just open yourself, open your senses to the pleasures all around you.
Let's leave people with a resource, a diagnostic that you share in the book on the sweet spot, how to check yourself. A couple of questions that you can throw. What questions should I ask myself to see where I am?
I've got a couple of resources, but one of them is at the back of my book, and it's the Wheel of Life. And this is not an unknown resource if you want. You can find it online or whatever. But the way I specifically look at it is, are you making space in your life for all the aspects of your life? Are you giving some energy and attention and time and resource of yours to each of the 8 aspects of your life? And that's everything from your intellectual development, your spiritual development, your family, your health, your sport and physical fitness, your financial development, your social development, your work development. Yes, I got them all.
Well, you
So are you making space for all those? not maybe every day, but every week, every month, every year? Is there a fair representation of all those? Are they all working for you? So that when you look back one day, you can say, yes, I lived a really full life. You know, nobody is going to care on your deathbed that you were the most successful person at work. Actually, what the research shows us that people care about is how you made them feel.
So pause and stop ignoring the relationships that matter to you.
Exactly. So looking and seeing, am I living a balanced life? Am I making space for all the things that are important? And then, yes, that's self-reflection. Do I like who I am?
And how am I making people feel?
And how am I making people feel? Yeah. And how am I making myself feel? Do I feel like I'm somebody on a treadmill that's a bit robotic, like a robot, roboting through life? Or am I a real feeling, breathing human?
I guess we could close with this. Someone who will say, okay, I want to make the change. I've been feeling powerless to make the change for whatever reason. I imagine with your sessions, you know some of the reasons people give for why change is difficult for them. What would you close and say?
It's a hard one because people give me all sorts of reasons why they can't. But I would say just start, make a tiny weeny change, what you know you can do. And that might be for you, eat a little bit better. Have 1 cup less of coffee or wine a day. And that might be where you start. And then take the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. So I would say just start and put your recovery first. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to say, I am important. And my recovery, whatever that looks like, is the biggest priority I have, way ahead of my business I'm building.
Last question that came up, and this was a good close. I wish I could have just ended the episode here. Energy drink.
What about it? Should you or shouldn't you?
Should I touch it?
Look, I think it's self-medication. And if you need medication to stay awake, the body's talking. The body's telling you something. And if you're not listening, you're not taking the feedback. Why do you need that energy drink?
I'll leave it there. I feel the judgment.
No judgment. The judgment is yours. Mine is just encouragement.
How do people find the book? And what's coming next in your season?
Thank you for asking that. So you can buy the book from my website, suefullagood.com, at the moment, because I'm busy with the revision. So if you buy the book now, you will get the revised version for half price, with my love and a big fat signature. So thank you for reading it. And what's next? I really want to take this information as far and wide as I can, because I honestly look at the world now and I think if people felt better, if they connected with themselves more, they would do better. And so much of what's causing trouble in the world is that people are searching. People are looking for something that they think is going to give them the security and the safety and the power and the survival that they need, whether that's power or money or more of whatever. And so this message for me feels like the absolute antidote to the craziness I see in the world around me. So I'm going bigger and bigger and bigger.
Thank you. I'll also link your website to this episode so people can check out what you do. Thank you for joining us till this time. Let me know what you think. Any question that you have for Sue, I'm sure she'll check them out as well. But thank you for joining us till this time. See you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.